People might think that they are in total control of their thoughts and actions, but really the people around them have a huge influence. Over time, many authors have touched upon this idea through works of literature, including articles, books, and movies. Through the use of government propaganda and society's increasing demands, it causes one's personal views to be shaped and sometimes changed. I will focus on 5 main pieces of literature that conveys the thought process. Those include The Crucible, The Tipping Point, America and Americans, Death of a Salesman, and Harrison Bergeron. These all display how society and oftentimes government can change one's views. In Death of a Salesman, Willie, one of the main characters in this piece of literature, lets the pressure of society affect his life. He constantly tries to keep proving himself and showing that he is a respectable man. His opinions were formed from the society he lived in. In certain ways, it caused him to be judgmental. A quote from the book says, "Even your grandfather was better than a carpenter. You never grew up. Bernard does not whistle in the elevator, I assure you." Willie believed that certain jobs weren't as prestigious. He made this clear as he in a certain way denounced carpenters. This thought process was formed from the competitive society he lived in and the people he had to work with. It was most definitely enforced due to the fact that he was a salesman always trying to outdo his competitors. In Harrison Bergeron, this story revolves around a society who is controlled by the government and their rules. The government believes in handicapping people to ensure that everyone is equal. Harrison is extremely handicapped due to the fact that he is strong and very intelligent. The government constantly pushes for new handicaps and instills this thought into the citizens' head. This is a form of propaganda that brainwashes the citizens. A quote from the story says, "Harrison Bergeron, age 14, she said in a grackle squawk, has just escaped from a jail where he was held on suspicion of plotting to overthrow the government. He is a genius and an athlete, is under-handicapped, and should be regarded as extremely dangerous." The government uses their authority and position to sway the thoughts of the people. When a government speaks out, it has a tremendous effect on the people, as government is usually something that people look up to. Harrison Bergeron conveys the same effect. The government claimed that Harrison was dangerous, and the people believed this and were afraid of him. Propaganda from the government will most likely always influence people's thoughts. When looking at The Tipping Point, we see that it is an informational book that includes many theories and philosophies. It goes into great detail identifying the reasons that society becomes involved in certain trends. It provides interesting and factual reasoning, saying, "When we say that a handful of East Village kids started the hush puppies epidemic, or that the scattering of the residents of a few housing projects was sufficient to start Baltimore's syphilis epidemic, what we are really saying is that in a given process or system, some people's opinion matter more than others. In certain situations, society will follow certain people and the trends that they set. When hush puppies became popular, it was because of a well-known fashion designer making the shoes popular again. This sparked people in society to become interested and begin to like the shoes. It changed their thoughts." In America and Americans, written by John Steinbeck, it addresses the certain thought process in many Americans. He offers a different perspective of why Americans believe their country is so great, or why they are entitled. It reads, "It is an American dream that we are great hunters, trackers, woodsmen, deadshots with a rifle or a shotgun. And this dream is deeply held by Americans who have never fired a gun or hunted anything larger or more dangerous than a cockroach. In this country especially, there's a sense of having great pride in being American. Sometimes people in the government or well-known figures push this thought. American society also pressures this idea, which causes people's thoughts to change into thinking Americans are the best." Finally, the Crucible video outlined the reasoning and theme behind the story. It explained how the people in the town only believed in the witches because of the mass hysteria of the teenage girls. The church sponsors the trials of all the people being accused of witchcraft. They then hang everyone who is accused. Governments have a great impact on the views of citizens. Just like in the Crucible, when a government or an authority denounces a certain cause or action, then it often sways the majority of people on that stance or issue. People are often swayed by the society around them and the governments that govern them. Their views become shaped by these two main factors. These five main pieces of literature outline this thought and principle. People aren't always as in control as they think. It is important to remember this the next time you make a decision. It may be important to ask yourself, why are you really doing what you're doing?
I will use five different sources to show how one's personal views can be shaped and sometimes changed. The first one is the Crucible. In the Crucible, the whole town started to believe that there was a devil in their town when one man stumbled upon girls in the woods trying to perform a summoning. The girls didn't want to be shunned and looked down upon by the rest of their town, so they told them that they were being possessed. So one person after another started to believe that there was a devil. This ended with many innocent people being jailed or even worse, killed. This really shows how just through the word of mouth, one's views can be changed very easily and drastically. The next source I will be talking about is the tipping point. The tipping point goes into a lot more detail, specifically talking about the word of mouth epidemic. It explores how ideas, trends, or social behaviors can spread like wildfires. It goes on to talk about how to start a social epidemic. You have to have a very social environment. So the more and more people talk, can't hear it simply by the word of mouth. It also says how big of an impact it can make, like mentioned in the Crucible. When the tipping point explaining the word of mouth epidemic, one can clearly see how easily it can be to change someone's opinion about something big or small. One of the best examples of how one's opinion can be changed very easily by the government is Harrison Bergeron. Harrison Bergeron is set in the future in a government that is in complete control of what happens. The government puts handicaps on everyone that is stronger than anyone else, so that everyone can be equal and no one has more power than the other. Harrison is very strong and he is really big, so he gets a lot of handicaps and is considered very dangerous. He is kept away until he breaks out and takes all of his handicaps off. When he does this, most people are shocked that he would even think about doing this. This really shows how the government can change someone's opinion or views by doing little to nothing. The government was able to get everyone to think the same about how it was considered just the norm to have handicaps. Another example of how someone's opinion can be changed very easily is in the text America and Americans. In the text, it talks about how someone's opinion about the government can be changed just by another person. In the text, it says, "We are able to believe that our government is weak, stupid, overbearing, dishonest, and insufficient, and at the same time, we are deeply convinced that it is the best government in the world, and we would like to impose it upon everybody else." This quote does a really nice job of explaining how someone's opinion can be changed. The final source I will be talking about is the movie Harrison Bergeron. It runs hand in hand with the text, but there are some little differences. But both in the movie and in the text, it shows how a government can change one's opinion by the simplest of things.